Okay, so let's talk about Ghana. There's this crisis unfolding that, on the surface, looks like an environmental disaster. But today, we're going to dig a little deeper, because this isn't just about polluted rivers. Nope. This is about a full on confrontation over truth, over power, and really, over the health of a democracy itself. Let's get into it.
I mean, just let that sink in for a second. What if the fight to save a river isn't really about the river at all? What if it's a test for something much, much bigger? This is the central confrontational question at the very heart of Ghana's illegal mining crisis, what's known as Galamsey.
All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the battle over truth itself. Then, the role of the media and activists who are right there on the front line. After that, we'll get into how power pushes back. And finally, what this whole mess tells us about democracy today. So, let's start with this core idea. You see, the thing about the Galamsey crisis is that it's not just one fight, it's really two. It's a war being fought on two very different but totally connected battlegrounds. So, on the one hand, you've got the stuff you can see, right? The physical battle. The polluted rivers, the forests that have been just stripped bare, the community is forced to move. But then, underneath all of that, there's this other battle, the invisible one. And that's the struggle to control the story, to get the truth out, and to fight back against the people who want to keep it all buried. And this quote right here, it nails it. The point isn't just about, pulling resources out of the ground. It's that Galamsey is putting Ghana's democracy under a massive stress test. It's really asking, when powerful people are threatened, can the system actually protect the truth tellers? Okay, so that brings us to the media's role in all this. In a fight like this one, they are the first line of defense. They're the watchdogs, right out on the front lines, and their job is to drag that invisible battle out into the open for everyone to see. And wow, the work they've done has been absolutely explosive. See, they're not just showing us what's happening, the illegal mining, the polluted rivers. They're digging into the why. They're connecting the dots from the environmental wreckage back to things like alleged political interference and enforcement that just seems to fall apart. And you know what's so powerful about this? It's the visuals. The photos and the videos of these brown, dead rivers and these landscapes that look like a moonscape, that's what took Galamsey from some local issue to a national emergency. I mean, a picture of a dead river? That hits you in the gut in a way that some dry government report never ever could. But here's the thing. Telling these truths, it comes with a huge price tag. When these journalists start digging, they're not just reporting on dirt. They're confronting powerful, entrenched interests. And believe me, those interests, they push back hard. We're talking about direct threats, intimidation, and even campaigns designed to just destroy their reputations. And this really forces you to ask a tough question, right? For any democracy. If a story points directly at powerful people, are journalists actually free to follow that story all the way to the end? Or does the pressure get so intense that they have to back off? The answer to that tells you a whole lot about how free the press really is. But it's not just the media on the front lines. You've also got activists and civil society groups. And their job is a little different. They take the facts that journalists uncover and they turn them into a moral and political reason to demand change right now. So their strategy is kind of brilliant, and it works in three main ways. First, they frame the whole thing as a moral issue, not just bad policy, but a betrayal of the next generation. Second, they take all that public anger and they channel it into action, like protests. And third, they put politicians on notice. Fix this or we'll remember it when we vote. So, what happens when all this pressure starts building from the media and activists? How does power push back? Because you gotta understand, the response happens on two completely different levels. There's what they say in public, and then there's what happens in the shadows. And this is where things get really interesting. The contrast is just wow. The official response is exactly what you'd expect. They set up task forces, they announce new policies, they get on TV and promise reform. But then you look behind the curtain, and the unofficial pressure is the complete opposite. It's threats, it's intimidation. It's a very strategic, very chilling silence designed to shut people up. And this pressure leads to something really dangerous: self-censorship. It's like the silent killer of truth. It's when a reporter gets a hot tip but decides maybe not to follow it, or an activist tones down their message. Not because anyone ordered them to, but because they just know the risk is too high. It's control without leaving any fingerprints. Super effective and super scary. Okay, so let's zoom out and put all these pieces together. When you look at the Galamsey crisis like this, it stops being just another environmental story. It really becomes a mirror, right? Reflecting the true health, the true strength of a country's democratic foundations.
And at the very core of this whole conflict is this idea of civic courage. And it's so important to think of this not just as, some nice quality a person has. No, it's the actual infrastructure of democracy. Without people who are willing to investigate, to speak out, even when they're under pressure, well, the whole system just starts to crumble.
I mean, this quote just completely flips the scripts, doesn't it? We're always talking about natural resources like gold or oil, but what if the real treasure, the most valuable resource a country has, is the courage of its citizens? And what if it's also the most fragile? Because you can't mine it, you can only crush it. And so that leaves us with this one final, really challenging question to chew on. The ultimate test here isn't an ecological one, it's a societal one. The real question isn't just, can we clean up the rivers? It's, can a society protect the very people who stand up to defend those rivers? That's the battle that really matters.